Here with Ernie, the Blerd without fear. He's one of the many amazing comic book YouTubers that I've taken inspiration from, and I'm constantly trying to match your energy, dude. But I can get you're at like a 9 or 10. I'm like peaking at 3.
Man, I honestly don't even know. I honestly don't even know how I do it. It just happens.
Pure
Yeah,
love of the game, man.
yeah. It's like, well, I don't know what it is like, when you start hitting the buttons and you're like, all right, hit record. I don't know, for some reason it was like, all right, cool. I'm in. I just go in the zone, and then from there, just the rest of it just kind of happens.
You do it really well, dude. I was just looking over your videos and like, how are you getting so much stuff out, man? Like,
I asked myself the same question. We live in amazing times.
it's true. It's
Yeah,
true.
I got tons of amazing stuff to watch, tons of amazing things to read, and not enough time to do any of them in.
Yep. Yeah, man. Like you said, it's just a lot going on. As far as if you're a nerd of any kind, basically, we have an embarrassment of riches these days, and
We really do.
yep. I was just covered the Marvel and DC Pride books with my buddy Willow.
Mhm.
Just went through every story in each one of those, and that was really cool. Just being able to talk about that stuff and realize that like comic book companies are actually making real effort to be more inclusive now, and that's pretty awesome. So
It's a crazy thing to imagine because I remember when you being a kid, you're reading old Claremont X-Men, and it's like you had instances where, like, yeah, if you had a character who was LGBTQ, or or actually, as more recently, I've seen this come up, a character who was just another ethnicity that was not white.
yeah,
A lot of times, those characters got a lot of getting pushed to the background, like in the case of like LGBTQ. I remember I was actually talking with somebody about this very recently, that I remember Mystique and Destiny had to be referred to as being partners. They could, because you had the Comics Code Authority, so you can't have gay characters. So
yeah,
they're like, no, gay characters bad. We can't have that. They can be partners. They're friends.
right.
They're roommates. It's like, you don't have that anymore now. So like, you can actually let these characters breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been I imagine that we're going to be seeing more of them sometime before long, right? Like they're building up to something with that, and what is it, the Inferno and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But even though Destiny's not actually around in the comics right now, there's been a lot. Basically, everything going on in Krakoa could just come tumbling down based on what goes down with Mystique and whether or not they actually bring Destiny back or not. But anyway,
If you told me like 20 years ago that like Destiny would be like this major like linchpin and like the deciding factor of the future of X-Men comics, I would have laughed you
right.
out of the comic shop.
Yep. I mean, man,
But
like,
yet here we are.
I've been reading comics as long as I can remember, but for a time there, years ago, I couldn't immediately remember the difference between Destiny and Blindfold. You know what I mean? So like it took, but that was kind of during a
I
window.
understand that.
Yeah. Like, well, they're both like a couple of people that can see the future or something, right? Same thing.
Like, it's so different. Actually, anyone who had the name like Blind Spot, Blindfold, Blind anything, like I used to get all those characters confused. I'm like, I don't know which one of y'all are which.
Yeah, it's second only to characters with blood in the name, right? Like,
oh god, yeah, no, man, are we talking about the '90s now?
if we have to, I mean, no.
Yeah. Wait, '90s Image Comics, is that you?
There's there's a lot of folks that they want their comics to just be frozen in time like that. It seems like, you know what I mean.
There's a place for it, but
Sure.
it's not here.
I mean, there's a place for every type of comic book.
Yeah.
What I get mad about is people trying to be like, this is what all comics should be, kind of thing. You know
Mm.
what I mean? As if it's just such a narrow and limiting way to view such a, broad medium that could be literally anything.
Yeah. There's
So,
comics out there for everybody.
yep,
I've read some comics that I I probably never would have read if someone didn't just literally like put it in my face and go, here, read this.
same. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if it was up to me,
I
I'd
get
just
it.
be reading superhero stuff and that's it. But like,
Mhm.
luckily, I had years ago a friend that was like, "No, man, check out like, Fables or
Mhm.
We Three and stuff like that." And that's whenever I started going, "Oh wait, comics can be a whole different type of thing." Gotcha.
Wait,
Um,
there's more than capes?
yeah, I mean,
What?
can't believe it, right?
Who told you this?
It's
What sorcery is this?
some indie guy trying to sell me his book. Told me that.
I totally I get it though. I used to be the same way though. I used to be like if it didn't have a cape on it, I'm like, ow.
Yeah, that's how I grew up. I mean, and sadly, like it's still kind of in more casual fans. A lot of people still associate comics with just superheroes, right? Like it's
Mm.
people and we
Oh,
watch. They have
yeah.
shows on all the time that people don't even realize that's based on a comic book, but they'll watch the
Mhm.
show anyway. So
Oh yeah, what was there's a movie that oh god, I'm blanking on the name of it at this very second, but it was it Melissa McCarthy and Tiffany Haddish and was it Elizabeth Moss? Yeah, you're playing these wives of these gangsters and they end up having to like take over the empire or whatever when their husband's gonna do. I had no clue that was based on a comic.
oh wow, okay, no, I
And
didn't.
I'm
I
sitting
don't
here
remember.
watching, like, I was like, this is good. And yeah, then I go back, they're like, oh, based on the graphic novel. And I was like, the
Wow,
hell you say? So, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff out there. It takes different strokes,
indeed.
to move the world around. And I am a huge fan of non like more so than I used to be in back in the day, but I'm just as quick now to read a non superhero comic, and probably enjoy it a lot better in a lot of respects just because
Yeah,
it's something different. But
right.
there's all kinds of like people out there be really creative, and I think it's always good to kind of broaden that horizon.
Definitely.
See what your favorite creators are doing when they're not working for Marvel or DC.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing that a lot in the last year or so. Like, like I'm into Hickman's X-Men. I read it was into his
Mm-hmm.
Avengers and Fantastic Four, but then I started branching out and reading his indie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's a little bit too out there for me to really get into, but
I
yeah.
mean, it's okay. You can say decorum is weird. It's okay. You can say it.
I
You're
haven't even gotten to
allowed.
that one.
Oh,
I freaking love no, have you tried the nightly news, dude?
I have not. I have not tried it, but
It like
people keep telling me, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to think differently of him.
it was pretty I mean, I don't know anything about the quality. I haven't heard anybody say good or bad, but I'm just
Mm,
trying to read it. It was virtually impenetrable. Like
mm.
just completely, random format for where lettering and speech and everything goes and how the panels are laid out. It's just like, what is this, man?
Like Hickman's more of a novelist. Like he's very
Yeah.
wordy.
Oh
He's
yeah.
very verbose. He reminds me of Claremont back when Claremont first started writing X-Men. Like Claremont used to just be like just all over the place, like
Yeah.
words everywhere. And then eventually he learned how to let the artist tell the story. Alongside him. And Hickman can be that way too in a lot of respects, but I think it works for him more often than it doesn't.
Yeah.
The decorum is another one that he does. It's not bad. Thing is, there's just a lot of words, and like I don't know what this says about me as a human being. It probably makes me sound incredibly shallow, but when I start reading something and there's just way too many words going on, my eyes roll in the back of my head and I start falling asleep.
I mean,
So
for
yeah.
comics, it's like where our brains are kind of hardwired to expect like somewhat of a certain ratio of picture to words, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when we start getting into it, and it's like, okay, I'm reading like 500 words, and we're still on this one panel. I don't know if I'm good with this. Like, I don't
Right. I'm like, wait, how many more pages are there in this? There's 40? It's 40 pages.
Yeah.
All right, I guess.
But I mean, like,
Uh,
speaking of Tynion, is what Something is Killing the Children.
oh, perfect. Oh, love it.
Freaking great book. And as everybody knows now, Invincible is a really cool story. I mean, it's a bit different in the show than it was in the comics, but in a lot of ways, it's
Yeah.
not.
They did a nice mix of adapting and changing. Like
True,
it
true.
was.
Yeah.
They threaded the needle. I think as good as you probably could have without pissing off everybody.
Yep. All right. Well,
But
let me ask you about a couple of specific things here. What did you think about Donny Cates finishing up on Venom?
It's weird to say, but I remember when Donny Cates first started writing Venom, I did not care. Not one single bit. I was like, everybody's like, hey, man, Venom's got a new writer.
Yeah.
New kid on the block, new kid on the scene, man. He's out here in these indies. He's cutting up. And I'm like, I don't care. I just don't care. I don't know. And then I started reading some of his other stuff, and I was like, man, maybe I should care. And I started reading. I was like, oh, I do care. Wow, this Venom book is the best it's been in years. Oh, my God, this guy gets it. And then, like, the getting to the end of it, I thought, like, yeah, he did a very good job wrapping up everything. He actually set up some really nice story arcs for future writers, whether it be Al Ewing or whoever else comes in, even after Al Ewing, who knows? And I think the probably the only blemish I think I could really say about his Venom run is I felt like when he finally got to King in Black, the truck was starting to break down.
Oh.
It was like I liked I always tell people, like, when I'm reading the core King in Black comics, I'm like, all right, this is it. But when those tie-ins come along, I'm like, oh, man, They should have kept some of these tie-ins, man. And that's not even his fault. That's not even really his fault. That's more of a company thing.
Editorial thing, yeah.
Yeah, but just like, I was like, oh, man. It like, when it kind of reminded me, it was like you see Jack Sparrow on the boat, and it's like, the boat is underwater, but it still makes it to the dock. That's kind of how I felt. That's where King in Black ended for me. I was just like, yep, he made it. It just because all the tie-ins, I was like, oh man, there's too many ties. There's too many ties. There's too much stuff going on. Just tell the story. Let the story breathe. Let it breathe. And it was funny because there were books that weren't even actually King in Black tie-ins that were better tie-ins than the books that were on the checklist. Like Al Ewing was out here writing amazing sword stories about King in Black, and he had nothing to do with any of that.
Was the what was that Black Knight series? Was that on the
Black Knight? Yeah, that once again, it was all the stuff that was
really good,
on
man.
The periphery. Yeah, all the stuff that was on the periphery was great. It was the stuff they had on the checklist that wasn't hitting it, but that's not really so much his fault. But I did feel like he gave us what he promised.
Yeah.
And it did exactly what it said on the tin. I just thought it was really weird that, like, he and Al Ewing traded places.
Fair enough. I can
like,
see
hey, here, have Venom. Okay, cool. Give me your Hulk.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, both of those books, it was kind of like you were saying, whenever it started, you're like, I don't know if I care. I was getting to the point before they made these announcements. I'm like, am I going to want to read any Hulk or Venom after this? Now I'm like, okay, all right, y'all got me. Y'all got me.
I mean, well, all of that Marvel Fresh Start stuff, a lot of it, like, I was one of the main people who laughed. I mean, laughed loudly that it was a dumb idea. And I have been the main guy sitting here since going, nah, they did good.
Yeah,
the double numbering was dumb, but this is good.
after like, what was it, Marvel Now and stuff, and that was kind of a little bit of a flop. little fizzle out there. It's hard not to kind of be a little cynical about those types of relaunches and whatnot. But
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as King in Black goes, I friggin' loved it, man. Like, I can see what you're saying. I wasn't reading all of the tie-ins, but I could definitely tell as I was reading the event that if I would have read the tie-ins, some things might have made a little more sense.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I was able to follow it and stuff, but like and also at the same time, like at the start of it, I kind of called what was going to happen a little bit. I don't know if it was just kind of the natural, like anybody could have called that, or if I was just lucky, but like I was like, man, by the end of this, Venom's going to be just like not just like a kind of a superhero. He's going to be a real legit superhero by the end of this, and I seemed to be the right.
Well, you have to take him off the table. Take him off the table, put somebody else in the driver's seat for a little while. Yeah. And I thought that was a wise decision.
True.
Which, if you would have told me we were getting Agent Venom back, I was like, nah, that'll never happen again.
Yeah, I can't believe he pulled all that off, man. It was...
Here's all these toys. Have them back.
And then, set up what's probably going to be the next big event is going to be, other than what is it, the lights out one or whatever it's called they're doing.
Oh yeah, because you have the stuff going on with the Maker, you have the stuff going on with the symbiotes that are hiding.
Yep.
On the planet. It's crazy.
That Maker stuff is what I'm into, man. I've just fascinated with the idea of this deranged Reed Richards. You know what I mean? Like I want to see what he's doing next, and I'm guessing the natural thing is going to be like a 616 versus Ultimate type event, right?
I think so. I think that's actually what we're probably going to wind up getting. And I know for a while Marvel has been kind of like, hey, we might push the button on this thing. It might happen. And I think it only grew even more due to the popularity of people going back and looking at the Ultimate Marvel Comics universe, which to me its mileage varies depending on what you're reading.
Oh yeah,
but
big time. There's such a wide spread of quality amongst those books. It's insane.
Oh, it was all over the place. But I feel like there's some good stuff still in there. There's some really cool things you can do. I think everybody's kind of embracing the idea of not to say Marvel and DC have always embraced the ideas of multiverses, but I think that the idea of really diving into what those multiverses mean, I think people are becoming more receptive to that idea.
Yeah.
And so now we're seeing more stories about that, which I think is really cool. People
Definitely.
are like, oh, that sounds interesting. That doesn't sound too comic booky for me. I can get into that.
You know what did that was Into the Spider-Verse, man.
Yes.
Came out, everybody saw it, and so everybody's kind of got like a base idea of what this idea is, and from there, I'm sure all the comic book companies after that was a success. We're like, oh shit, we know what we're doing now.
Wait a minute, you mean tell me there's a Spider-Man in every universe?
Yeah.
What? And people are like, yeah, you know what that means? That's a license to print money.
Right.
Do you want to make all the money? Right this way. Look at all these Spider-Men we have here.
Let's learn about multiverse theory real quick.
Yeah.
And how you can profit off of it. But
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so what else? That was the Hellfire Gala. That kind of wrapped up in a big way. I was really, really impressed with that issue, Planet Size X-Men. What about you?
That was a very big issue, and I didn't fully understand the implications of it till after I finally saw it. I don't know. I'm one of those weird guys that a lot of times I like to theorize and think ahead, but sometimes I just like to let people know that I'm an idiot. So sometimes you can tease things and they'll be directly in front of my face and I won't see it coming.
Same.
Because I'm not in super uber comic book predictive text guy mode or whatever. I'm just like, I'm reading it just like everybody else.
Right.
And then stuff starts happening. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," because they totally went. I was like, "Wow, I feel like an idiot. I didn't even see that." But it was cool. It was awesome. Like they actually took some really cool things that that I really liked from Claremont's notes about how he wanted to do something very similar, but just never got around to doing it. And they took like some real world notes.
Oh, I didn't realize that part about Claremont. That's cool.
Oh yeah. A ways, man, God, it was a ways back. I got to sit down and talk with Chris Claremont, and when you sit down and talk with Chris Claremont, it's more like you're just listening, you're not really talking.
Yeah.
But he was telling me about the storyline that he had in mind for Magneto, where Magneto just like, nah, I'm done with this Earth stuff. This is done. It's washed. We're moving. We're going to space. We're going to Mars, and I'm terraforming it, and that's it. This planet mutants. And that's basically what the idea was, but he never really got around to doing it. And Hickman basically just did it. Or not even Hickman, Jerry Duggan more specifically, but I mean Hickman oversees all this stuff. But
right.
And they took some actual notes that NASA has had for a while about how to efficiently, like in theory, terraform Mars. And I was like, you've actually like took that and they ran with it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's like, it's a flex. This is a huge flex.
Oh,
and
major. Like they just changed the status quo of the solar system. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We got Queen Storm basically just declaring herself queen of the solar system. That's badass.
Like this is mine now. All this is.
I love how she comes out to Doom and she's like, "You already know who I am, dude." Like,
yeah. You remember that time where I electrocuted the shit out of you when you came to Wakanda talking a little too spicy? Yeah, it's me. I'm here now.
Yeah.
I love it because I don't know if the synergy was intentional, but like you literally just had Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on Black Panther in where they literally solidified the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. So there's like Wakanda way out, far out in space because reasons. And then of course, you got, it was like a slow, it's really weird. This is one of the reasons why I think nobody at Marvel really talks to each other. But you had Ta-Nehisi Coates was basically like re-solidifying Storm and T'Challa as like a single unit again, that they were getting back together. And then on the X-Men side of things, they're like, psych. That ain't happening.
Right.
And there's dissolution between them and all this other stuff. But like I just thought it was really cool that like at around roughly the same time that T'Challa is becoming the emperor of Wakanda in space, Storm is becoming the queen shit of the hill of space.
Yeah,
it's like
of local space.
Just local space. Yeah, none of that far off crazy stuff.
Nah.
Like T'Challa has. But I just thought it was very interesting. It's like I was like I just want to be a fly on the wall at Marvel. I just want to hear people like talk. Like maybe Ta-Nehisi Coates just walks past Jonathan Hickman. It's like, yeah, man, what's going on with that Black Panther run you got there? Oh, we're doing space stuff. Oh, we're gonna be doing that too. Like, I wonder how that's gonna, like, is that how it plays out? I don't know. I wish it was like a cafeteria.
Yeah.
Like everybody just sitting around talking about their ideas.
I mean, sometimes maybe 10, 20 years we'll get some interviews and learn a little bit about it. But yeah, they probably aren't allowed to talk much about it right now.
No, I don't. Yeah, there can't be that much crosstalk because there's so many things that usually like it's like you had Hickman setting up Franklin Richards. And then here comes Dan Slott. He's like,
"Oh man, that was so frustrating, dude." Like,
psych.
I mean, they've kind of gone back and forth on a few different things just in this Krakoa era, right? Like it seemed like they're going one direction and then they hit the brakes and go the other, like you're talking about with Storm and T'Challa, and then there's Franklin, and then like spoilers for what is it? Sword number 6, most recent.
Yeah, Sword number 6 is most recent. Yeah.
From what I recall, the last time I remember Magneto talking about Wanda, it was not good. Like he was not saying nice things.
It was
And then
very unkind.
and then suddenly in this one, last page, he's like holding her, saying, "You'll always be my daughter." It's a cool moment, really, really sweet and everything. But I'm just like, did I miss something?
I will say this, and you know what? With the benefit of hindsight now, and I don't know if this was intentional. I don't know if it's intentional. I don't want to give anybody too much credit. But I went back and I read Sword #1, which is like the first time we really see Magneto talk about the Scarlet Witch, since House of X. And like now I read those panels in a whole other context now. Like where where someone brings up Scarlet Witch and he's just kind of like, he's got the scowl on his face and he's like, I started noticing, I was like, wait, he's talking under his breath. I'm like, maybe I was like, did Al Ewing 4D chess me on this?
Damn. Yeah.
did he just 5D wizard chess me on this one? Like, wait a minute. Which I mean is very possible. Al Ewing is a madman.
Yeah, he's a wise guy. It would make crazy within the story because, like, Magneto. Let's say that we're assuming that was the plan the whole time for it to end up going where it went. He would have to kind of play it cool amongst it because everybody else is scared as hell of her, right? Like, he is literally the devil to mutants. You know what I mean? So like, he would have to kind of play both sides and like, be like, yeah, no, fuck that hoe. We don't like her around here, but deep down he's like, I miss my daughter.
It was a very weird, but like, it took me it actually kind of almost. I won't say it took me out of the comic, but like it hit me like in a weird way where I was like, I wasn't expecting this.
It kind of does.
I'm gonna have to sit down for a minute
because then it kind of unfortunately it forces you to think about the twisted continuity that has led us here. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, wait. What was the last thing that did they say that she was genetically? I think they've changed it back and forth like 3 or 4 times now, whether they're his kids or not. So
she is. I think as of current, she is a creation of the High Evolutionary, which is random and very out of left field.
Yeah, it doesn't really kind of jive.
So that's just like,
I mean, maybe they'll go like an interesting way and say like she's almost like an unnatural mutant or something like that, and kind of show us that kind of dichotomy of like, what does it mean to be a mutant, but you were like made one? I don't know.
That's kind of the idea a lot of people in my community have been throwing around lately, because one of the things I always like to remind people of is that Mr. Sinister is not really a mutant.
Right.
I was like, people always forget. They're like, oh yeah, no, he's a mutant. It's like, no, he's not. He's a mutant in the loosest sense of the term mutant, because he stole it.
I think probably is mutate the right word?
Yeah. He's technically a human mutate who happens to have an X gene.
Okay.
Which makes no sense, but it's just like, whatever. I was like, you know what, comic books, that's always my answer for everything. It's like, it's comic books, man.
My buddy Willow has been getting really into comics lately, and they're fresh off the boat when it comes to comics. So like, they'll get to a point when they're like, hey, what's this about? And I'm like, comics. Like, I could take like a couple of like 30 minutes and explain it to you, or I can just say comics.
Don't do it. Just look, anytime the stuff, when you start, when the science of the comics is being called into question, things are getting too weird. Things are going like 18, 20, 90 different directions. I just always tell people, look, just turn your brain off. Don't think about it too hard. If you think about it, there's a lot of comics in general. Like, I always tell people, like, I love comics. I've been reading, I'm almost 40. I've been reading comics like almost my entire life.
Hey, me too.
And look, kindred souls, man. But I feel like if you really sit down and just think too hard about a lot of comics, the whole thing comes crumbling down.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's and I don't want to make it sound like these guys aren't out here, writing incredible stories. It's not a paper thin narrative or anything, but it's just like, there are sometimes we just have to remind ourselves that originally these things were intended for teenagers and kids.
And then to be thrown away after, like nobody, you know, there was
Right.
nobody expected to have the same continuity like 85 years later, you
No.
know.
No.
And that's kind of what I was telling my friend is like, this is just kind of the byproduct of having a serialized narrative that's going on for like 8-9 decades in some cases, and you just kind of have to freshen it up. You got to keep it current,
Yep.
like all of those different things, plus the different, you know, creative teams and whatnot. It's
Oh,
just you're going to
man.
end up with some inconsistencies, and if you go digging for them and like pulling those threads, you're going to kind of ruin the fun for yourself, if you know what I mean. But like, yeah,
Somebody gets removed from a book.
yeah,
Someone's taken off a book. Someone just decides to move on. Or a storyline gets scrapped because nobody cared. There's lots of stories that I have seen over the years. I'm like, yeah, that never got finished. It's like, I guess we'll never know.
That's actually a good idea. I'm gonna write down a note right here. That might make a good video.
Dude, literally storylines no one ever touched.
Yep.
I guarantee you there's something to mine from it. I guarantee you.
Yep. Yeah. Well, so what else are you into? What's going on in DC this year?
You know, everything I loved about DC ended when Far Sector stopped.
Oh wow.
That was Far Sector was the one book that DC had that I was like, I'm reading this.
Okay.
I'm going to finish this. And then issue number 12 came out, and I was like, well, my contractual obligation to read DC Comics has ended. That's actually a lie. There's no contractual obligation. No, I don't know. For some reason, DC hasn't been hitting very strong for me lately. Like, when I originally started doing YouTube, I almost exclusively covered DC Comics stuff. I didn't even touch Marvel, anything hardly, except for like occasionally the X-Men. And or like a random Avengers thing. And then one day, I don't know, I think it might have been Doomsday Clock. I think Doomsday Clock did me in. Yep, it was Doomsday Clock. Had to be. And I just said, you know what? I'm done with this. Y'all don't know what y'all are doing. I want to take this ride with you, but
yeah, it's been hard to watch in some cases, as they're just like they're trying to get their shit together, and then they'll kind of like get a little momentum, and then it falls apart, man. The wheels fall off, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, well, they'll have certain books that are doing good. Like, I remember even when I wasn't enjoying DC quite as much, like I was still enjoying The Flash. Yeah. Or James Tynion has been doing his best with Batman. Like, I think he's actually been doing a pretty good job on Batman. There's things that are there. It's just that I'm more interested in what in more what DC is doing outside of their normal shtick, like the stuff that's going on with Milestone, some of the stuff that like their Young Animal imprint, and some of that other stuff. I'm like, these things are a little more interesting to me than your core DC Comics, whatever the heck it is that you call your main DC imprint,
right?
Which I guess is just DC. But some of your Black Label stuff I think is a little more interesting than what's going on. Like, we have a running gag on the channel. My co-host for the Blerd Cave, he always brings up Wonder Woman Dead Earth. All you gotta do is say Wonder Woman, and he'll just immediately go grab a copy of Dead Earth. I'm just like, good Lord, man, this guy's shilling for DC now. I'm shilling for Marvel. He's shilling for DC. Between the two of us, we might actually make a halfway decent living, because we're not getting paid by either of them. But no, it's one of those things. Like, it's like, wow, this other stuff you guys are doing is so much more important and amazing.
It's like they're able to step out of the box. They're not afraid to. Yeah, in the main, and I think it has a little bit to do with over the last year or two, they've really, I think, pulled resources from, the comics division, just Warner Brothers has in general, and so it ends up like they're basically just trying to put out comics that don't challenge the status quo too much, but also are, you know, and it's just a really awkward line to try to walk. Whereas, like you said, the outside of regular continuity, they can take chances and do, you know, different shit. So.
Yeah, you can, when it's Black Label, you can just be like, nah, just do it. Just gonna do the thing. You know,
right.
Nobody's gonna care. You know, well,
basically a what if.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, this is an Elseworlds title. You can do whatever you want with this. You literally have like the darkest timeline, which DC always seems to be doing that, but I don't know. I feel like yeah, DC has lost its way. I don't know if they have a plan. I don't know, because I don't know if you remember this, but what was it? I always get this guy's name wrong, and I apologize because I'm terrible about butchering names. But was it DiDio?
Dan DiDio.
Yeah. So I remember when everybody was calling for pitchforks. They're like, oh, he's trying to do some new thing. He's trying to reboot the universe again. He's going to call it DC 5G, and it's going to be terrible, and it's going to ruin the comics industry. And there were even creatives at DC that were like freaking out about it. Scott Snyder being one of them. And then he gets fired or let go. I don't remember exactly what the actual story was there, because who knows? I think the only people who really know the truth about what happened there is Dan and whoever fired him.
Right.
But everybody's like, great, we're not getting 5G. And then they announce what was it, Infinite Frontier.
Yeah.
And all the future state stuff.
State.
And I was like, oh, y'all still getting 5G. It just ain't gonna be the way y'all thought.
Right.
But yeah, it was hilarious to me because there's no plan. I don't think I just want them to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want them getting bought out by Marvel. I don't want them getting bought out by some other company. Just let them do what they do.
Yeah. I mean, even if I'm not into the stories personally, if other people were reading them and buying them, then I'd be cool with that. I don't want to see either one of these publishers go down the drain. You know what I mean? So
no. Well, in comics, I think there was a recent study. I think they literally came out today. Apparently, the comics have been like flourishing.
Yeah, I saw
since the pandemic.
Yeah, I think it was. Let me find that article, and I had it.
Like, I just stumbled across it. Like, I was even like, it was one of those situations where it's like, if you look at every other print media just kind of shit the bed. Like, everybody's just dropping out. Like, they're dropping like flies. And comics is what's actually still, like, outlasting everybody.
I was expecting 2020 to be lower than 2019 in sales, right? And it's not. 2019 was $1.21 billion. 2020 was 1.28.
See, it's crazy.
And that's during pandemic, man. Like, if this medium just has legs, dude.
Right. Well, and you know what it is? I think when people think about the comics industry, like, people always try to say, oh, the comics industry is dying. You get woke, you go broke.
Right.
That's how it works.
Yep.
Get too woke, you make no money.
It's the law of physics.
But the truth of the matter is that, yeah, comics will probably never be that industry again, like what it was back in the 90s, where like everybody's trying to get ahead on the collector's side, and people still are. But
you don't want it to be like that again. It was unhealthy. It was large, but it was unhealthy, man. And that's, you know,
it almost killed.
Damn near.
Almost killed the industry. Like, literally almost killed the industry. And I think comics are in a place now where it's closer. I mean, I can't speak for, you know, the people who work in the industry, but I feel like it's a better setup now.
Yeah.
Overall, because you know, if you want to work for Marvel, you can work for Marvel. You want to work for DC, you can work for DC. Hell, you can work for both of them if you want. If you want to work for Marvel and maybe do some indie stuff on the side, you can do that. Donny Cates, Al Ewing. I've seen so many different writers and artists that are all over the place nowadays. When you look at this stuff, like, I remember saying, "Oh man, I'm reading Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk. Wait a minute, he's doing something for Boom Studios. What?"
Yeah. And so it's
And
like
it's like,
they're able to, you know, they can pay their bills by working for Marvel or DC, but then they get to
yeah,
do their passion projects over for Image or whatever, or Boom, and it's a cool
yeah,
setup.
yeah. Vita Ayala. Vita Ayala's writing 2 different X books,
Yeah.
and writing for Milestone and various and sundry other stuff for DC. And I'm just like,
Vita had a story in
let's
both
go.
Pride books.
Yeah, yeah.
I was tripping for a second. I was like, wait, didn't I just see Vita? Oh my God, they're in both of them. You know what I mean? So,
Which I'm here for. I'm like,
yeah.
this is type of. Honestly, I feel like this is we're at such a good point right now, and I feel like people are not going to appreciate it probably the way they should, but we're at a really good point now where like literally you can, like, it's almost like sports. Who has a team anymore? You just follow players.
Yeah.
That's what I do with comics now. I'm just like, I don't have an imprint that I mean, granted, I've always kind of been a Marvel guy, but I follow artists and writers. Like, if you tell me that Cy Spurrier is going to go write something for Image, yeah, I'm just gonna be like, all right, cool. What is it? All right, cool. Jason Aaron, wait, Jason Aaron's writing something for Image? Okay, cool. I'm gonna go read that too. Yeah, if and yeah, I know a lot of people's mileage varies, with Brian Michael Bendis, but when Brian Michael Bendis left Marvel to go to DC, I was like, okay, cool. I'll check out what he's doing over there too. I mean, I'm not particular. It just, sometimes it depends on it. Brian got a hug from his daughters and got a kiss from his wife in the morning to determine whether or not his book is going to be good this week.
He's really like, he's written some of my favorite runs on stuff, and he's just written some of the most disappointing shit I've ever read too.
Yeah. Look, that is the thing. I tell people all the time. You can always tell what kind of day Brian Michael Bendis had based on how good the comic was that you read that month. If the comic was great, that means everything played out. That means his children, they gave him a hug and a kiss when they woke up in the morning. They said, "Hey, Dad, we love you. You're great." His wife was like, "You know what, honey? I'm gonna give you 2 extra pieces of bacon for breakfast this morning." That's the kind of day that Brian Michael Bendis has when he writes a good story. When he's writing a bad one, that means just everyone treated him like he was a stranger in the house. Like, oh, hey, Dad.
That tracks.
And he's not the only one. There's a couple other writers I can think of that fall into that category. But yeah, he's definitely. I'd always tell people, because people are like, "Oh, he's never written anything good." I was like, "Dude, know he literally gave us Miles Morales. So let's calm down."
I mean, like, say what you want about Avengers Disassembled, the content of the story itself. I've seen people say it's great. I've seen people say it's terrible, but that was a big turning point that without it, we wouldn't have the modern, the Avengers that became the freaking Avengers in the movies and shit like that. No. That was a necessary moment to get us to where we are.
It's, I would even dare say that a lot of the X-Men stuff that you have now.
True.
A lot of that, you know what? Now I'm going back there. I was like, man, dude, Disassemble really actually like that was like to quote the Disney Plus show Loki, this was a nexus point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I kind of give him a little bit more leeway, probably. Like, any writer that's doing multiple books all the time, like he tends to. I'm like, look, he's basically the workman of this, of this line right now. So he's gonna have some hits and misses just because he's constantly working.
Right.
But
he was LeBron. He was always on the court.
True.
If you got your star player on the court 99% of the game, then of course he's going to throw up some bricks.
Yep. But what you were saying a minute ago, that's a good point. Like, it's actually a really good sign, I think, for just creativity in general, is that we're not going, I got to read every X-Men book no matter what, or every Spider. We're going, wait, who's the creator, right? Who's drawing it? Who's writing it? Oh shit, I'm going to follow that then. And it almost is kind of, reversing a little bit to where, people are tending to focus on creators more. And I think that's a really good sign. We
need that.
Yeah.
I know there was some controversy with Ed Brubaker in the
Mm,
wake of when Falcon and the Winter Soldier was on the verge of coming out, even during its run, where
yep.
people were learning that Ed Brubaker makes no money off
Yeah.
of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, even though they're using his ideas. They're using stuff that he created. He doesn't get anything out of that. And this is the same for a lot of creators. And I feel like when we get to the point where the creators are actually being given the flowers that they are meant to be given, I feel like we all win.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
at the end of it all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice if like we start getting comic book movies where it says created by so and so or whatever, or it's right there
Mm-hmm.
in the text at the beginning or whatever. And sometimes it is, but not usually when it comes to like
Yeah.
they like to put the legends in the credits. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and stuff. But
I think it was Jim Starlin. I think it
mhm,
was Jim Starlin that said this. He said that he made more money off his cameo in Endgame than he does off of any like royalties or anything like
yeah,
that he gets from the ideas that they took from his stories to make their movies. And that's kind of messed up because he's only in Endgame for
a
uh
second, yeah.
like barely, like I think it's like an eight, like 0.8 seconds.
Hmm.
0.8 seconds, I believe, because I didn't even realize that was him until I went back and was, I think it was on like a third or fourth viewing. I was like, is that Jim Starlin?
Well,
Just
because at the time
randomly sitting there?
like if you're like me, you're thinking, oh, that's was it Joe Russo is in that scene.
Yeah,
So that's usually probably what you're focused on, right? And then you're like,
right.
oh, Jim Starlin's back there too. Shit. Um,
Holy, wait a minute, I know that guy.
yeah, yeah, super cool guy. Talked to him at one time
Yeah,
at a con. He was
dude's amazing.
cool. I asked
He's
him like
just,
it was like a month after Infinity War came out, and I met him, and I was like, get him to sign all my Infinity Gauntlet stuff. I was like, hey, so what'd you think about it? Did you think what they did with Thanos and everything? And he was like, well, it was really good. He was like, I'm just happy that I'm not like Bob Kane after the what you call it, after the 60s Batman show came out, where he had to just kind of smile and go, yeah, I like it. Because apparently Bob Kane didn't
dude.
like it. So
Yeah, no. Look, Bob Cam's like, look, man, I'm just trying to get paid.
yeah.
Like, what do I gotta say to keep these checks coming in?
Yeah, but
Okay,
like
I love it.
speaking of creators getting their due though, man, like I'm working on a video right now about Superman, the original Superman stories, and like
Mhm.
creators and stuff, and how basically they died virtually penniless. You know what I mean? Like, and if
Mhm.
DC had had their way, their names would have been erased from history as well. And
Yes.
so in that
Incredible.
regard, we've kind of made some strides from that, but it's still not as far as it needs to be, where creators are really getting their due. So,
Comic book companies have a history of being very scumbaggy. Back
mhm.
in the day, I've realized. I recently had someone reach out to me and ask me a question about Shazam, and asking me why certain things with Shazam don't line up, and like I literally was like, look, okay, so the only way to explain this to you is to give you the history of Shazam and DC Comics. And when I explained it to them, they were like, oh, DC used to be on some bullshit. And it's like, yeah, a lot. Because
Yeah,
he literally put a company out of business because that company's comic, which was Captain Marvel at the time,
was too close to
is
Superman. Yeah,
too close to Superman, and it was constantly outselling Superman.
that was the real
And
problem right there.
yeah, and
Um,
that's why I always tell people, if you're worried about these companies, yeah, they used to be terrible.
yeah, it's and so it's actually good that people are becoming more aware of not necessarily that history, but just like
Mhm.
how the creators don't tend to get their due. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's what was it like? Just off the top of my head, because I've been doing research for that video, but like Jerry Siegel, I think it was doing deliveries. Like, he was just a delivery man in 1977 or whatever it was, whenever they announced this Superman movie coming out. And, you know, he's like, what the hell? They're making this big movie, and I'm doing deliveries and shit for my bills.
Right.
And so he actually had to kind of like go to the news and go to the media to get his, you know, hey, this is what's going on with me. I've been sick. I've got all this debt and stuff like that. And then I created Superman. So then DC was like, okay, we'll give you $20,000 a year for the rest of your life. And it was basically just like they got shamed into it. You know what I mean? And
yeah. It's like, oh, I guess we'll give you something.
And then when you think about all the money that Superman has made, you know what I mean? $20,000 a year, that's nothing.
That's pennies. Look, Superman wakes up in the morning and wipes his ass with $20,000. Like, it's literally, it's nothing. Like, they had a similar, and I don't remember the name of this documentary, but it's a thing that exists. If you look it up, what was it? The guy was Bill Finger.
Mm-hmm.
Who was supposed to be one of the big minds behind Batman, but never got any credit for it until
the first movie his
Batman v Superman.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, dude, it's like, what is this?
Well, that was just Bob Kane basically just and at the same time I don't want to say forgive completely, but like back in those days, people get mad at Stan Lee for how he, and there are reasons to be mad at how Stan Lee did things, but at the same time, nobody, like we were saying earlier, nobody had any fucking clue that these things were going to be what they became. So it's like, to these guys, they were just trying to get some crap out and make a paycheck in a lot of cases. So they're not like thinking, oh, this is my character, I'm going to, take this all the way to the bank and shit like that. So it really just was like the consequences of being in the Wild West of this frontier of comic books. But we're way beyond that now, so we need to be way beyond that point too.
Right. Mistakes were made. Definitely, big mistakes were made along the way. But I mean, just be glad it's not that way anymore. My God, I could not imagine. Heck. A lot of people talk about Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby used to not get a lot of the credit that he deserved for the creations that he came up with. Like, people are always like, "Oh no, Stan Lee." He's like, "Well, there's another guy who's over there too, Jack Kirby."
Right?
He did that, and they used to not want to credit him.
I've been learning a lot about Jack Kirby in the last couple of months, reading a couple of books on him, and there's the beginnings over at Timely and Marvel and whatnot, and how things went down. And yeah, you're right. Like there's a lot of resources out there to find out about stuff Stan Lee had to say about creating these characters and whatnot, but he's just the one that got in front of the cameras and got in front of a microphone.
Yeah, he was like a figurehead. He was like, I don't really even blame Stan Lee for a lot of the stuff, because I always just kind of feel like he was just the guy that they were just like, go on out there and say a few lines. They like you. You're a likable guy in the office. Go out and talk to the press.
And if it wasn't for him being comics cheerleader like he was for all decades, I don't know if they'd even be going still anymore. You had this adult. He's a well put together adult man out there talking about comics as if they're legit as anything else. That was super important.
He was very animated about it. He was affable. You could tell that he was incredibly sincere. He was just a good guy.